Good morning, Bills Mafia. I've got my biggest takeaways from the Buffalo Bills 23 to 20, victory over the New York Jets on Monday Night Football. But first,
Welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
welcome in Bills Mafia to the Air Raid Hour post-game show. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on social media at The Bills Guys. This show is presented by the Cover One Sports Network and Picasso's Pizza, and it is a victory Tuesday all around Buffalo and all around the nation, because this is America's team, the Buffalo Bills, with this 23-20 victory over the New York Jets. It was not a pretty game to watch, but at the end of the day, the Buffalo Bills are 4-2. They are 2-0 in the AFC East, and they have a rather favorable schedule coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Not going to be the typical post-game show. Obviously, number one, don't have Dave here with me. And number two, I really this is one of the first times I've ever gone live without two laptops and my notes sort of next to me. I got all my notes on my phone here from last night's game against the New York Jets. And I just want to give sort of my biggest takeaways from this game and everything that went down against the New York Jets. First thing I want to talk about and get these three things out of the way before we get into some of the more positive things from this football game. Sean McDermott, his decision at the end of the first half, or his decisions at the end of the first half that led to the Hail Mary, that was a big topic of conversation on social media. I honestly still, a day later, don't know what to think about it. There's so many things that you need to factor in. The first thing you need to factor in is the fact that the wide receiver in the end zone, Alan Lazard, was triple covered, and none of those guys even tried to bat the ball down. Damar Hamlin, Taylor Rapp, Taron Johnson. Number two, there's a number of people up in arms over the fact that the Buffalo Bills only rushed two guys. You got to take that into account post-game. Aaron Rodgers' comments, they only rushed two, so I had plenty of time to do whatever I wanted, is essentially what Aaron Rodgers said. And then you had them dropping edge rushers to sort of stop the field goal and stop the sideline. You had them about 15, 20 yards downfield. One could argue that was a smart move because they could have Hail Married or tried to set up a field goal. Other people would argue the wind, the way it was. What do you do in that situation? Do you maybe just give up the field goal since it was so difficult? We saw Greg Zuerlein later, in retrospect, miss two field goals in this game. So a lot of hullabaloo around this play here from the Buffalo Bills that could have been very, very costly. And we'll talk about what went down between that play and then the next series for the Buffalo Bills and how they let the New York Jets back into this football game when they had pretty decent control over it. But at the end of the day, this is now, off the top of my head, three situations, 13 seconds, the Minnesota Vikings game, and now the Hail Mary. It just seems like the Buffalo Bills defense always seems to tense up in these prevent situations. And that is something that has been a problem historically under Sean McDermott and these Sean McDermott coached Buffalo Bills football teams. It almost seems like a teaching them, not reaching them situation here, because there's no way in heck the coaches aren't telling them to bat the ball down. Same with Cam Lewis, etc. So it's a weird situation. I'm not going to sit here and get too mad at it because we won the football game against a pretty decent New York team, despite their record 2-4. But yeah, definitely something that gives you pause in this game. And another thing that is going to fuel the anti-McDermott fire from people who want Sean McDermott to no longer be the head coach of this football team. And for people like me, it's just something to store away. because I've been on record saying it is what it is at this point. If the Buffalo Bills continue to roll with Sean McDermott, cool. If they don't, I get it. So I'm Switzerland in this battle here with Sean McDermott. Tyler Bass was another big talking point in this game. He missed an extra point. He missed a field goal. Some people want to argue the field goal was blocked, but you could also argue it was only blocked because he literally kicked it right into the hands of the defenders and he would have missed anyway. So Tyler Bass with just some awful kicks. Post game, Sean McDermott says he missed those kicks. He knows he needs to make those kicks. It might be time for the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, you're saddled financially to Tyler Bass, but it might be time for the Buffalo Bills to add a kicker to the practice squad and to make a call up for the next 2 weeks and to try something different at kicker, or at least to send a message to Tyler Bass and have a second kicker, if not on the active roster, on the practice squad to start pushing Tyler Bass, or to have a safety valve for Tyler Bass in case it completely implodes. Because it seems at this point, while he's made some kicks, when it comes to making pressure kicks, we've seen some issues from Tyler Bass this year, and we've seen some pretty bad misses. Now, when you look at his overall statistics on the season, not terrible, but at the end of the day, there are just so many memorable missed kicks over the course of this season from Tyler Bass, and then obviously dating back to last season as well. And then the last thing I want to talk about before we get to the one big thing, before we get to some of the data and the stock up and the stock down, I want to talk about the penalties and whatever the heck it was that those officials were doing on Monday Night Football. There were just so many bad calls. Both of the roughing the passer calls were bad. The Teron Johnson low block was bad. The penalty on Spencer Brown for unnecessary roughness for finishing a block was terrible. There were a number of other terrible calls that went the Bills' way and in the Bills' favor. There were plenty of terrible calls that went in the Jets' favor. I mean, it was just an absolute nightmare. Those officials stole the show on Monday Night Football and made that game practically unwatchable. My guy, Bruce Exclusive on Twitter, said, at the end of the day, though, it doesn't matter. The National Football League is not going to do anything about it. They're not going to hold anyone accountable. They don't care. They know that they don't have to pay full-time officials. They don't have to insure full-time officials. They can continue doing what they're doing. There can be no transparency, and no one will. At the end of the day, we will all have short memories. No one will care, and we'll move on, and we'll just yell it into social media abyss again next week when officials take over another game that we happen to be watching. And the other issue I have in this game is the use of the Sky Judge. I love the use of the Sky Judge, but it seems like the NFL just picks and chooses when it wants to use the Sky Judge. Like, there needs to be some clarity around when and when not the Sky Judge can be utilized, because why is the Sky Judge not calling down to say that wasn't a roughing the passer on AJ Epinesa? Why is the Sky Judge not calling down to say that that was a not an unnecessary roughness on Spencer Brown? Why was the Sky Judge not calling for that roughing the passer on Josh Allen at the end of the game to be taken away? Both sidesing it, right? The Christian Benford PI on Garrett Wilson was an awful call. There was no pass interference at all whatsoever. Like, where is the Sky Judge there? Like, they seem to pick and choose when they want to utilize that Sky Judge, and that is something that, in my opinion, is very questionable. All right, before we get to our one big thing, this show is brought to you by Picasso's Pizza.
What's up, y'all? Khalil Shakir here. When I want Buffalo pizza, it's got to be Picasso's.
Picasso's.
Khalil Shakir. Your team, our pizza. Picasso's. This is Buffalo Pizza.
Picasso's Pizza, Buffalo Pizza since 1980. 4 great Western New York locations. And if you're not in Western New York, they will mail it right to your door. Just head on over to picassospizza.net. Once again, picassospizza.net. All right, we got our one big thing here this evening. I got 2 big things. First of all, I do my one big thing for the offense. I'm going to do one big thing for the defense as well. One big thing that I have for the offense in this game that has me encouraged is number one, I feel like this running game for the Buffalo Bills is legit. Like it is up there with the San Francisco 49ers, the Detroit Lions of the world. The Buffalo Bills have a bona fide running game that they can establish whenever they want, wherever they want, and they can control the line of scrimmage in that running game. They are also learning to win in the underneath. You had more passes caught by non-receivers in this game. You had more yards from non-receivers in this game, running backs and tight ends, etc. So Allen specifically, and it feels like he's almost being forced to, because that's the discouraging part about this, is that nobody respects our wide receivers, is in the long run, not having some of these weapons on the outside might be good for Josh Allen, because it looks like it's forcing Josh Allen to learn how to win football games in different ways than he has won football games before. And in the long term, I think that's going to be a benefit to the Buffalo Bills. However, you would like to at some point see some receivers added to this room so that they can win in multiple ways. Because this almost seems like the formula for the Buffalo Bills to stay in games with these big teams. They've sort of figured out how to play without bona fide receivers. And Keon Coleman's getting better. Don't get me wrong. Khalil Shakir was clearly hurt, and he will get healthier. Curtis Samuel had some flashes in this game, but at the end of the day, the Bills have figured out this formula. Number one, don't get down big. Like the defense under Sean McDermott, they've taken their lumps in the first and second quarters and then rebounded to have bigger second halves. Like that seems to be a trend with this defense. They can't do that, right? So they got to make sure that they bend, but they don't break. And they can never get really down more than a score. Never get into too many down and distance spots. This means that they're going to have to run the ball a ton on first down, because you don't want to get yourself into a 2nd and 10 situation, because that could lead to a 3rd and 10 situation, a 3rd and 12 situation. And the Buffalo Bills just don't have the dogs at wide receiver to survive that consistently. So running the ball on first down is probably going to continue to be an emphasis. Alec Anderson being on the field is going to probably continue to be an emphasis, because the Buffalo Bills are going to try to put themselves in 2nd and 3rd and manageable situations as much as they can, so they can stay on script, because they don't have those wide receivers that they can lean on like they have in years past. And they connected on some off script stuff, which I feel like we really didn't see a lot of, especially in the Houston Texans game. So the combination of never getting down big, the conversation of never getting into never getting down too big, right? Or never getting down big, the combination of never getting down big, never getting into too many down and distance spots, and connecting on the off script stuff. That's how the Buffalo Bills are going to beat good teams. I think they're going to go and try to do that versus other teams, and you can probably see them curb stomp lesser teams like the Jacksonville Jaguars with this strategy. But you got to be perfect in your execution of this strategy in order to stick with the New York Jets of the world, even though the New York Jets are 2-4. The Houston Texans of the world, the Baltimore Ravens. If the Buffalo Bills played like they played tonight against the Houston Texans, they're probably 5-2 right now, because I think they found that formula, but that formula asks them to do a lot. You got to be perfect in your execution. The Buffalo Bills are not some team that can go out there, and I don't want to say wing it, but they're not a team I think that can go out there and beat really good football teams in multiple ways. There's a formula, and they have to follow that formula, and I think they finally figured that formula out against the New York Jets. Now it's all about going out and executing it. My one big thing on the defensive end, I thought it was an awful game plan from the Buffalo Bills on defense, straight up. I thought it was a terrible game plan. Aaron Rodgers, 221 of his 294 yards were against 2 high safeties. All 3 of his sacks in the game came against the blitz. The Bills blitzed at an 18.4% rate. Going into this game, the MO was out for how to beat the New York Jets. Apply pressure to Aaron Rodgers, force them to get the ball out quick. Yet the Buffalo Bills ran a majority 2 high shell, and Aaron Rodgers absolutely cooked. It wasn't until the second half that the Buffalo Bills decided to start dialing up the blitz, and you started to see the Buffalo Bills get more stops, and you started to see the Buffalo Bills on that last drive there get a turnover with Taron Johnson. The Buffalo Bills may have escaped with a win, but the Bills cannot allow teams to feed their star players at will, like the New York Jets fed their star players in this game. Garrett Wilson, 8 catches, 107 yards and a touchdown. Breece Hall, 23 touches for 169 yards. Like, that's just not good. Now, the flip side of that argument is, well, we're just gonna let the 2 stars do whatever they want, and we're not gonna let anyone else do anything. And for the most part, that's right, because it was crickets from all the other Jets playmakers except for Allen Lazard, who went over 100 and a touchdown. But those numbers decrease significantly if you don't count the Hail Mary touchdown. So really, the Jets got, other than Allen Lazard, on 2 or 3 really chunk explosive plays, got nothing from any of their other skill position players. It was Garrett Wilson and it was Breece Hall all night with some Allen Lazard sprinkled in. So bailed out by the Jets and their lack of execution in the red zone, bailed out by the refs to some degree as well. And then you had some big plays, which we're going to talk about from Taylor Rapp and then Taron Johnson late. But to me, that was not the greatest performance from the Buffalo Bills defense. And it started for me with the game plan. Like, you knew the MO for how to beat this Jets offense, and you just didn't blitz a lot. And I know it's not in the Bills' DNA to do that, but you got to make some adjustments and you got to have that tool in your toolbox. And the Buffalo Bills did not show that to me on defense until way too late. All right, let's take a look at some of the data. Haven't had a chance to analyze some of the data like I typically do, and I'm not going to have, numbers here for you, but speaking on complimentary football, Aaron Rodgers essentially said in the post game that the Jets lost this game more than the Bills won it. I would argue that the Bills kept this game close more than the Jets stayed competitive, because you have a missed extra point from Tyler Bass. Then you have the Hail Mary, and then the Buffalo Bills come out of the half and they miss a field goal. Like, it literally should have been 24-10 minimum before the Jets even touched the ball in the second half. The Buffalo Bills did not play good complimentary football there. They did not execute. They kept the Jets in the game. They kept that game competitive. You cannot waste things like the double dip. I was so excited at the beginning of the game when the Bills won the toss and deferred, because I was looking forward to that double dip. And then you go out and you give up the Hail Mary and then you miss a field goal. Like, that is some disheartening stuff. And to add on to that, the missed extra point as well. The Buffalo Bills did not play good complimentary football on each side of the half there. And then toxic differential. Again, didn't have time to go through and chart it and track it, but I can tell you that the Jets were living and dying by explosives. Like, at one point it was 7-3. They were absolutely killing the Buffalo Bills in that category. There were big plays to be had by the Jets all night. Dave and I talked so much about how they were just going to dump the ball off to Breece Hall and let him go. And what did they do in this game? They just dumped the ball off to Breece Hall and let him go. There really wasn't much rhyme or reason to it. They were just literally tossing him the ball and letting him run. And the Buffalo Bills were not tackling. They were not communicating. They were not executing. And thank goodness for Taylor Rapp. And to a degree, thank goodness that Breece Hall blew it. How he did not get into the end zone on that one toss is beyond me, but that could have been an absolute backbreaker for the Buffalo Bills. The toxic differential in this game, again, don't have the exact numbers because I decided to go to bed last night, but not pretty for the Buffalo Bills. Let's talk about some highlights in this game, and we'll start with some offensive highlights. We're 19 minutes in. I haven't mentioned Ray Davis yet. Ray Davis, in my opinion, had a great game for the Buffalo Bills. 152 scrimmage yards, most by any rookie in the NFL this season. That tops Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., Tyrone Tracy, and what he's done over the past couple of weeks as the lead back in New York with Devin Singletary out. Just an absolutely huge game by Ray Davis. Some notable people in NFL circles saying, like, hey, I love Ray Davis's fit. Ray Davis might actually be a better fit for what the Buffalo Bills want to do than James Cook, but obviously James Cook is a really good football player, and you're not going to just eliminate James Cook out of your offense, especially with only 1 week of sample size. But Ray Davis has shown that if it's going to take some time for James Cook to heal, he can take that time to heal. And I'm really excited about the future of a Ray Davis, James Cook backfield. This is not a direct comp. I'm not directly comping these players, but you see the success that Detroit has with sort of that grinder type of running back in David Montgomery. And then the receiving slash running slash speed element of Jahmyr Gibbs. Maybe the Buffalo Bills have a tandem now and can take some of the pressure off of James Cook and implement Ray Davis a little bit more. And obviously, Davis can do some of the David Montgomery-esque stuff, and James Cook can do some of the Jahmyr Gibbs-esque stuff. That is something maybe the Buffalo Bills can look into. Instead of just giving James Cook a bulk of the carries when he comes back, maybe they can look to share the responsibilities of the backfield, or at least get Ray Davis more involved, because last week the guy had 2 snaps. And kudos to the Buffalo Bills, because when James Cook was announced as out, I really thought they were going to ride Ty Johnson. Ty Johnson's number 2 on the depth chart. He's the next guy up. He started the football game, got the first carry, but then Ray Davis came in right in during the first series. Like, they didn't even give Ty Johnson the whole first series. And it was clear the game plan was to ride Ray Davis. The Buffalo Bills were like, we drafted this guy in the 4th round. We've seen what this guy can do in practice. We're going to ride Ray Davis. This was a planned Ray Davis game, it seems, from the get-go, especially from some of the comments that Ray Davis made in the postgame about, expecting a much heavier workload in this game. So for the Buffalo Bills to sort of make that decision, even though Ty Johnson had been the number 2, to ride Ray Davis in this situation, kudos to them. That was a really good decision that they made, and it was really good to see him, pop off like that. Just a great story. They talked about in the broadcast how he grew up homeless, 14 brothers and sisters, grew up in the foster care system, adopted by one of his AAU teammates, mothers, who he now considers, his mother. So just a great story from Ray Davis. And it was nice to see a guy with the number 22 popping off at running back for the Buffalo Bills. On the defensive end, let's give Taylor Rapp his flowers. I mean, he made up for that Hail Mary with a huge second half. There were 3 notable plays that Taylor Rapp made. Number 1, he broke up the touchdown in the end zone to Garrett Wilson. Number 2, he stopped Breece Hall from scoring at the goal line on that explosive from Breece Hall. And number 3, he broke up that first down to Allen Lazard. It was either Allen Lazard or Mike Williams late in the game. It is absolutely crazy that Taylor Rapp has the stones and the mindset to go out there and play the football game the way he does, like a throwback to the 1980s, 1990s, and just throw his body around and play with such violence. For him to do that 2 weeks removed from a concussion tells you everything you need to know about Taylor Rapp. And, somebody made a joke on social media. It was nice to see him sort of finally connecting those shots on the other team as opposed to our own team. But the guy plays with just a reckless abandon. It's fun to watch. Kudos to him. I was pretty mean to him on social media and Damar Hamlin after not knocking that ball down the Hail Mary, but they more than rebounded with a great second half. And then how nice is it to have Terrell Bernard back? He was making plays. And how nice is it to have Taron Johnson back? Taron Johnson with just an absolutely incredible play on the ball to seal the game for the Buffalo Bills. And you saw on the defensive end, Taron Johnson call game. And then on the offensive end, drawing up a play in the dirt, and essentially Josh Allen called game on that third down, being able to run for that first down. And then the Buffalo Bills were able to ice the game. So those are my highlights. Stock down, I kind of already talked about at the top of the show with Tyler Bass. But the Buffalo Bills find themselves at 4-2 and 2-0 in the AFC East. Up next, they're at the Titans. We get a nice little 1:00 game from the Buffalo Bills. Then they go at Seattle versus the Dolphins and at the Colts. In my opinion, they got to be 7-3 in that stretch or coming out of that stretch. The tough part there is I think you just played a pretty brutal physical game on Monday Night Football, and there's a short week. Josh Allen made sure to note, like, hey, we got a short week. We got work to do. We got the Tennessee Titans. You can't have a let up against the Tennessee Titans because of the short week. Then you go out west, and you cannot let the trip out west affect you. and then you cannot let the trip back affect you with the Dolphins the week after that. So the Buffalo Bills have a nice little favorable schedule here, in my opinion, with Titans, Seahawks, Dolphins, Colts, a chance to be 8-2, 7-3. But there are some elements that give you some cause for concern because it is an NFL season, right? Titans on a short week after a very physical football game in the Meadowlands, and the West Coast trip, and then the trip back, and maybe some of the jet lag from the trip back as you play a division rival, a team who might have Tua back in the Miami Dolphins by the time you play them. So some pause for concern, but the Buffalo Bills have a real good chance here to buffer their schedule and to go into that Kansas City Chiefs game and then the bye week at either 8-2 or 7-3 if they go out there and they execute and they do what they need to do. So pretty exciting stuff. Apologies to the comment section. Sorry, going solo here and trying to work the graphics and all that stuff. Didn't really have a chance to read the comments as you guys were going along, but I appreciate you guys in the comment section. It's 5 o'clock in the morning, so I definitely tripped on my words a couple of times. Don't have my show notes like I normally do. I was staring at my phone, so I apologize for that as well. But thank you guys so much for joining me here at the Air Raid Hour on the post-game show. We will be back next week in a much more convenient Sunday morning time slot, and then our typical Monday night post-game show. But hey, cheers. I guess I can't say cheers. It's probably like 8 o'clock in the morning for most of you, but yeah, who cares? Cheers to a Victory Tuesday and a Buffalo Bills win. If you could please just like this YouTube video, would really appreciate that. It helps us with the algorithm. And then obviously, if you think there are other people who would enjoy this post-game show, hit the share button and share it with those people. Word of mouth is always a great way to spread what we got going on here at Cover One and the Air Raid Hour. Thank you guys so much. And until next time, go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comments section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!